The market was loud and bright. Ships of many colors hovered above the platforms, and traders from many worlds shouted to sell their goods. But this was no ordinary market. Among the goods, living beings were displayed, held in cages or chains. Some were aliens with strange shapes, some were smaller creatures, and one cage held a girl who looked different from all others. She had soft, pale fur over her arms and ears like a cat's, and her big green eyes were full of fear. She shivered as the slavers laughed at her. Every time she moved, the chains clinked. She whispered her name, Lyra, but the words were lost in the shouting. Her small body trembled and tears ran down her face. The slavers mocked her. "Look at her," one shouted. "Does she think she can hide her fear?" "Humans will never pay for her," another said. "She's just a little furball. No value at all." A man watched from a distance. He was tall and dressed simply in a gray jumpsuit. His name was Mark, and he had come to the market for parts to fix his ship. He was not interested in slaves. He had never thought much about slavery. But now, something in his chest tightened as he looked at Lyra. He saw not just fear but something else, hope that someone might help her. The auctioneer banged a metal rod on a platform and the crowd quieted. "Next," he called. Lyra was pulled forward. The chains cut into her wrists. She fell to her knees, trying to hide her ears and tail. The crowd laughed harder. She whispered, "Please, someone," but her voice was small and weak. Mark felt a strange pull. He approached slowly, careful not to make the slavers suspicious. He asked quietly, "How much for her?" The slavers turned to him with sharp smiles. "You? A human?" one sneered. "Do you have enough money for her?" "She costs more than you can imagine." Mark did not answer right away. He looked at Lyra again. Her eyes were wide, pleading. He imagined what it would be like if no one helped her, if she was sold to someone cruel. His hand shook slightly, but he knew he could not walk away. "I'll pay it," he said finally. The slavers laughed so loudly the ground seemed to shake. You'll give up your life just to buy her?" another mocked. "Humans are fools." Lyra stared at Mark, unsure if she understood. No one had ever offered to save her. The chains still cut her wrists, but her body stopped trembling a little. A small hope began to grow inside her. The auctioneer smirked. "Very well," he said. "Sign here, human, and the girl is yours. But remember, it is not cheap. You give up your freedom, your work, and your rights. Everything in the future is gone if you pay this price." Mark hesitated for only a moment. Then he signed. The metal pen felt heavy in his hand, but it did not feel wrong. It felt necessary. Lyra watched as the papers were signed. The slavers scowled and shook their heads. They expected him to fail, but he had kept his promise before even fully understanding what it would cost him. One slaver unclipped her chains and held her hands out. Lyra froze, fear still in her eyes. She did not trust easily. But Mark smiled gently. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her tail twitched nervously. Slowly she stepped forward. He offered his hand. She took it cautiously. For the first time in a long time she felt someone cared about her. The slavers muttered angrily and returned to their work, losing a sale that they had thought was secure. Mark led Lyra away from the cages and loud traders. He offered her food and clean clothes. She ate slowly, still unsure if this was real. He watched her, patient and careful, making sure not to scare her. He had no plan yet, no place to go, but he could not leave her behind. They walked through the market quietly, past the bright stalls and the hovering ships. Lyra glanced around, noticing things she had never seen before. Machines that flew, lights that moved with the wind, humans and aliens working together. The world was bigger than she had imagined. And for the first time it felt like she might belong somewhere. Mark thought about his life. By helping Lyra he had given up many things. His career, his plans, his future. But he did not regret it. Looking at her, he realized that some things were more important than freedom or wealth. Some things were about doing the right thing. Lyra finally spoke, her voice trembling. Why would you help me?" Mark smiled softly. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because no one should be treated like this. And because I could not let them laugh at you anymore." Her ears twitched and her eyes brightened. She felt a little braver now, a little stronger. For the first time she was not just a prisoner. She had someone on her side. And Mark, the human who had walked into the market to buy ship parts, realized that today he had bought something far more valuable, a life. The two of them left the market together, stepping into the chaos and light of the busy world outside, not knowing what the future held, but knowing that they would face it together. Mark and Lyra moved away from the crowded market, their steps careful among the noisy traders and busy shoppers. The city stretched out around them, bright lights reflecting off tall buildings and floating vehicles. Lyra still clung to the memory of chains and cruel laughter. Every step felt strange, safe yet unfamiliar. She kept her ears low, uncertain if anyone would try to take her back. Mark noticed her tension. He spoke gently. "You're safe now. No one can take you back. Not while I'm here." Lyra's green eyes widened. "But, you gave them so much, for me? All your future, your work, why?" Mark shrugged, trying to make it sound simple. "Because it's wrong to let them treat you like that. And because no one should be alone in this world, afraid of every step." She thought about his words. Few had ever shown her kindness and fewer still had risked so much. Her tail twitched nervously. Could someone really care about her this much? The two found a quiet alley to rest. Mark took a small bag from his shoulder and offered her a meal. She ate slowly, still watching him carefully. Her stomach had been empty for days, and the warmth of the food made her eyes water slightly. I don't know what to call you," she said softly. "Mark," he replied. "And you are Lyra. That's all I need to know for now." She nodded, but her mind raced. She thought about the slavers, about what they had said. He had given up everything to buy her. That meant he had no easy path ahead. He had risked his freedom. Yet he did not look sad or angry. He only looked calm, determined. Mark packed up the remains of their simple meal and stood. "We need to move. Staying in one place is not safe. I'll find somewhere for us to stay tonight." They walked through narrow streets, past shops selling tools, fabrics, and strange alien devices. People barely looked at them. Lyra stayed close to Mark, not wanting to be alone, not yet. At the edge of the city, Mark found a small abandoned warehouse. It was quiet and empty but dry and safe. He cleared a corner for them, setting down simple mats to sit on. Lyra hesitated at first, then curled up on one. "Here, you can rest," Mark said. "I'll keep watch." She looked at him, unsure. "Why do you care so much?" Mark paused. He could have answered in many ways, but he chose the simplest truth. "Because it's right. Because sometimes you have to do what no one else will. And because I could not let them laugh at you anymore." Lyra's eyes softened. She had never heard words like this. She had heard pity, mockery, fear, but not care. Not someone willing to risk everything for her. Her ears twitched, a small sign of hope. The night grew quiet. The city lights faded in the distance, and only the soft hum of distant traffic remained. Mark kept watch near the entrance. He thought about the future. He had given up his old life. Earth, his job, his plans, they were gone. But he felt no regret. Lyra's safety was worth more than any career or comfort. Lyra lay awake, thinking about her past. Her family had been taken, her home destroyed. Slavery had been her only path for weeks. And now, a human had given up his future to give her a chance. She had never felt hope like this. She wanted to trust him, but fear still lingered. Morning came slowly, with pale sunlight spilling into the warehouse. Lyra stretched, testing her strength. Mark had prepared a small breakfast. She took it, slowly gaining confidence that this was real. I want to help," she said finally. "I don't want to just follow. I want to do something useful." Mark smiled. "We'll figure it out together. For now, rest and eat. Later we can make plans. But you're free to choose. Not because I said so, but because you can." Lyra's ears twitched, a small smile forming on her lips. She had never had choices like this. Never felt a hand offered without chains attached. For the first time she felt like she belonged somewhere. They spent the day moving carefully through the city, avoiding busy streets, keeping out of sight from any slavers who might be looking. Lyra learned to watch, to listen, to move quietly. Mark taught her simple things: how to use a small communicator, how to read street patterns, how to trust her instincts. By evening they found a safer place, a small hidden room rented by a human friend of Mark. It was modest but clean. Lyra settled in, feeling more secure with each passing hour. She still had doubts, but they were smaller now. Mark watched her, thinking about the future. He had risked everything, but he was ready. Together they could face whatever came next. He did not know all the dangers ahead, but he knew that some things, like courage, kindness, and hope, were worth any price. Lyra finally spoke, her voice steady. I want to trust you, Mark. I want to try." Mark nodded. "And that's all I ask. We'll take it one step at a time. The rest will follow." For the first time in her life, Lyra felt safe. Not just from the chains, not just from the slavers, but safe to be herself. And Mark, the human who had given up his future, knew that saving a life could be the start of something far greater than any plan he had ever made. The two sat together, the city lights glowing softly through the windows. Outside, the world continued in chaos and trade. Inside, a human and an alien cat girl had found a moment of peace, a beginning that neither would forget. The small room was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of the window. Lyra sat on the floor hugging her knees while Mark checked the locks on the door. The city outside was busy, full of life and noise, but inside the world felt small, safe and strange. Mark finally turned to her. "You don't have to be afraid here," he said gently. "I won't hurt you. No one will. You can rest, eat and just be yourself." Lyra's ears twitched nervously. I don't know how to do that," she whispered. She had spent so long in fear that being safe felt unfamiliar. "I've never been free before. I don't even know what free is." Mark nodded, understanding. "It takes time. You don't have to do it all at once. One small step at a time." She looked at him, curiosity mixed with caution. "One step." "Yes," he said. "Tomorrow we'll do a small step. Just a walk outside. You'll see the world without chains. And each day after we'll do a little more. You'll learn what freedom feels like. I'll be with you the whole time." Lyra considered this. No one had ever promised her that. No one had ever offered safety or patience. Her tail flicked lightly, a sign of nervous hope. She nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try." The next morning Mark woke early. He had prepared a simple breakfast of bread, fruit and water. Lyra ate slowly, still unsure, still watching him. He said nothing, only smiled and waited. She noticed that he did not rush her, did not demand obedience, and that made her feel strange, safe, almost. After breakfast Mark offered his hand. "Ready for our small step?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. The chains had left marks on her wrists and fear on her heart. But she looked into Mark's eyes and saw no mockery, no anger, only patience. Slowly she placed her small hand in his. They walked through quiet streets, avoiding the main market areas. Lyra's ears twitched constantly, listening for any danger. Mark walked beside her, calm and careful, guiding her without pulling, letting her move at her own pace. "You're letting me choose?" she asked finally. "Yes," Mark said. "You're free to decide. That's part of your step." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest she had never known. No one had ever let her choose. It was frightening and wonderful all at once. Her tail flicked nervously, then relaxed slightly. They found a small park, strange and quiet in the center of the city. Soft grass grew between stones and a few small birds hopped near a fountain. Lyra stopped, staring at the scene. She had never seen green things like this growing freely, never heard birds chirp without danger. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Mark smiled. "It is. And it's yours to enjoy. No chains, no fear. You can sit, watch and just be." Lyra hesitated, then lowered herself to the grass. She watched the birds, her ears twitching in curiosity. For the first time she felt calm, her body relaxing. Mark sat near her, watching without interrupting, allowing her the space to feel safe. Over the next few days they continued their small steps. Each day Lyra gained confidence. She learned to walk in the streets without panic, to speak quietly to Mark, to eat without fear of poison or traps. Mark showed her the basics of human tools and devices, how to read simple maps, and how to notice danger before it arrived. She began to smile occasionally, a small curl of her lips, almost shy. Her ears lifted more often, and she even played with a small piece of string Mark had given her to practice coordination. She laughed quietly once when she dropped it and it bounced on the ground. Mark laughed too, softly, happy to hear the sound. One evening, after a long day of small steps, Lyra spoke. "Mark, why do you help me? No one ever helped me before. They just used me or laughed." Mark looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because it's right. Because someone has to care when others don't. And because I've seen the world. I know what cruelty can do. I cannot let it continue, at least not if I can stop it for one person." Lyra blinked. She had never heard such words. No one had ever explained kindness, patience, or sacrifice like this. Slowly she understood that Mark's actions were not just helping her. They were showing her what a human could be, what bravery and compassion could mean. She leaned slightly closer to him, a small gesture of trust. I want to help too," she said softly. "I don't want to just follow. I want to learn and maybe help others too." Mark nodded. "And you will. When the time comes you'll choose how to use your strength. For now just focus on the small steps. Freedom is learned one step at a time." Lyra curled up near him, her tail brushing against his leg. For the first time in her life she did not feel the chains. She did not feel fear. She felt possibility and a little courage growing inside her. Mark watched her quietly, thinking about the journey ahead. He had given up his old life, but he had gained something far more important. A chance to make a difference and a friend who was learning to believe in herself. As night fell, the city lights glowing through the window, Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, maybe I can be free. Mark smiled and nodded. Yes, Lyra. You already are, one step at a time. And so, in the quiet room, a human and an alien cat girl took small steps together, building trust, learning freedom, and beginning a journey that would change both of their lives forever. Word spread quickly through the city. A human had bought an alien cat girl from the slavers and refused to let her be enslaved. Some whispered in awe, others in anger. The slavers had lost face and now their rivals were mocking them. But not everyone was impressed. Some saw Lyra and Mark as targets. The first warning came one evening. While Mark and Lyra were walking through a quiet street, a shadow moved behind them. Lyra's ears twitched. Mark, someone is following us, she whispered. Mark's eyes narrowed. He had anticipated danger, but he had hoped their small steps toward freedom would go unnoticed. He quickly led her into a narrow alley, crouching low. Stay close to me, he instructed. Don't make a sound. Two slavers emerged from the shadows, their faces grim and cruel. You think you can take her and run? One growled. The price has not been paid. She belongs to us. Lyra's tail bristled, but she froze, unsure how to react. Mark stepped slightly forward, his stance calm but firm. She belongs to no one but herself now. Step back or you'll regret it. The slavers laughed, thinking the human was bluffing. But Mark had learned many things in his travels, not just engineering. He had learned courage, strategy, and the strength of determination. In one smooth motion, he triggered a small device in his hand, emitting a bright flash and loud noise that stunned the slavers just long enough for him to grab Lyra and run. They dashed through the twisting streets, Mark guiding Lyra carefully. She clung to his arm, her heart pounding. I can help, she shouted. Mark nodded. I know you can. Use your speed and agility to keep up. Watch my lead. Together, they leapt over crates, dodged vehicles, and disappeared into a crowded plaza. Lyra's confidence grew as she realized she could move freely without chains holding her back. She felt her strength returning, her fear slowly turning into determination. After escaping, they found a hidden safe house that Mark had prepared. It was small and secure, stocked with supplies and equipment. Lyra collapsed onto a mat, breathing heavily, but her eyes shone with a new fire. You're fast, Mark said, smiling slightly. And brave. You did well. Lyra's ears twitched nervously. I want to do more. I don't want anyone else to be trapped like me. Mark nodded. Then we will. But we must be careful. The slavers are not the only ones who profit from fear. There are others who will try to stop us. We have to be smart and patient. Over the next days, Mark and Lyra began to plan. They mapped the markets, tracked the movements of slavers, and learned how to sabotage their auctions quietly. Lyra practiced moving silently, using her agility to slip past guards. Mark taught her simple tricks with devices to distract or block sensors. One night, they approached a small slave market. Lyra's heart raced. She had been there before, but now she had a choice and she had Mark at her side. Together they freed a small group of captives, aliens who had never known kindness. Lyra guided them through secret paths, while Mark handled the equipment and security measures. The freed aliens were cautious at first but slowly realized they were safe. Lyra's calm voice and Mark's steady presence gave them courage. They began to trust the humans and a spark of hope spread among them. This is only the beginning, Mark said quietly to Lyra as they watched the freed captives disappear into the night. We can't save everyone at once, but every life we free matters. Lyra nodded, feeling a new purpose. She no longer felt like the frightened girl in chains. She was part of something larger now, a team, a mission, a hope for change. Her tail twitched with determination, and her ears lifted high. As the days passed, their actions became bolder. They intercepted more slavers, freed more captives, and spread information about the cruelty of the slave markets. People began to whisper that humans were not just clever engineers or traders, they were brave, resourceful, and compassionate. The slavers grew angry. They tried to hunt Mark and Lyra, but every time they thought they had an advantage, the human and the cat girl slipped away. They used clever traps, fast movement, and teamwork. Lyra learned to anticipate danger, and Mark trusted her instincts. One evening, after another successful mission, Lyra looked at Mark. They'll keep coming, she said. We can't stop them all. Mark smiled calmly. No, but we can show them that not everyone will obey cruelty. We can show them that some humans fight for what's right. That alone will change things. Lyra realized he was right. Every freed captive, every failed auction, was proof that courage and compassion could triumph over greed and cruelty. She felt proud not just of herself, but of the human who had chosen to risk everything for her life. Outside, the city lights shone brightly, reflecting off metal surfaces and windows. Inside their safe house, Lyra and Mark prepared for the next day, knowing danger was never far, but trusting in each other. Together they had become more than a human and an alien catgirl. They were a team. They were hope. They were proof that one person's courage and one act of kindness could challenge the chains that bound the galaxy. And somewhere in the shadows, the slavers seethed, realizing that their laughter and cruelty could no longer control the lives of others. Mark looked at Lyra, who now stood tall and confident. Tomorrow, he said, we save more. Lyra nodded, ears high, tail straight, ready for whatever came next. The city was quiet before dawn, a pale light stretching across the rooftops. Mark and Lyra had prepared for their final mission, one that could make the biggest difference yet. The slavers' main auction hub was heavily guarded, but intelligence from freed captives had given them a plan. Lyra checked her small gear, her ears twitching nervously. This is dangerous, she whispered. What if they catch us? Mark placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then we deal with it. But we will not fail because we are careful and because we fight for what is right. Remember, courage is stronger than fear when you use it together. She nodded, her green eyes shining with determination. For the first time, she did not feel like a frightened girl in chains. She felt like a warrior, ready to act, ready to make a difference. They moved silently through the alleys, avoiding patrols. Lyra's speed and agility allowed her to scout ahead, while Mark carried devices to disable security gates and alarms. Together they were precise, each step planned. When they reached the auction hub, Mark activated a small device that created a loud diversion. Guards ran to investigate, leaving the main hall less protected. Lyra slipped inside, her movements quick and quiet. She found the cages filled with aliens, small creatures, young and old, all terrified. She whispered, "We're here to help. Stay calm, follow me and you'll be free." The aliens hesitated, fear still in their eyes, but Lyra's calm presence gave them courage. Slowly they began to follow her instructions. Mark worked on the locks and security systems, sweat running down his face but his hands steady. A guard entered the hall unexpectedly. Lyra froze, her tail bristling. The guard raised his weapon. Mark stepped forward, holding up a small device that emitted a blinding light. The guard stumbled back, confused, giving Lyra the chance to guide the captives to safety. One by one the cages opened. The aliens hesitated only a moment before running into the shadows Mark had prepared. Lyra moved swiftly, her agility unmatched, ensuring no one was left behind. The hall, once filled with laughter and cruelty, was now silent except for the whispers of hope. When the last cage opened, the alarm began to blare. Mark and Lyra sprinted through hidden exits, emerging onto a rooftop. They paused to catch their breath, looking down at the hub below. Guards scrambled, but it was too late. The captives were gone. Lyra's ears twitched as she looked at Mark. "We did it," she whispered. "We really did it." Mark smiled. "Yes, but it's not just about this hub. Every act of courage, every life we save changes something in the galaxy. People begin to hope. And hope is harder to capture than any slave." As they descended the rooftop, Mark pulled out a small communicator. He broadcasted the evidence of the slavers' cruelty to nearby colonies and trade regulators. Images of cages, chains, and frightened eyes filled screens across multiple worlds. The message was simple. Slavery is no longer hidden, and those who do it will face consequences. Lyra watched, awe in her eyes. She had never imagined that their small actions could have such a wide effect. She felt proud, not just of herself but of the human who had risked everything to save her life. News spread quickly. Trade regulators intervened, shutting down operations, arresting slavers, and offering protection to the freed aliens. The markets that had laughed at Lyra's tears began to crumble. People began to talk about the human who had given up his future for one life, and how that courage had sparked a larger change. Mark and Lyra returned to their safe house, exhausted but exhilarated. Lyra curled up on her mat, her tail brushing the floor. She looked at Mark. I think I understand now. You didn't just save me. You gave hope to many." Mark nodded. "And so did you. Without your courage and willingness to act, None of this would have worked. You are stronger than you think, Lyra. For the first time she felt completely free. Not just from chains but from fear. She had choice, purpose and a future, one she could shape herself. Days later Mark received an offer. A new assignment, not as a slave buyer or ship engineer, but as part of a galactic rights organization. He could continue his work protecting others, preventing slavery and making the galaxy safer. He looked at Lyra, expecting her to hesitate. But she smiled, ears high, tail straight. I'm staying, she said. Not because I have to, but because I want to. There's more to do and I want to help. Mark nodded. Together they prepared for new missions, knowing that danger would always exist, but courage and hope would always be stronger. They had started with a single life, but now their actions had touched many. As they looked at the horizon, ships departing the city lights, freed aliens waving from the docks, Lyra whispered softly, "Thank you, Mark, for believing in me." Mark smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "No, Lyra. Thank you for believing in yourself. That is what truly matters. The galaxy would remember. Not for the fear of slavers, not for the cruelty of chains, but for the human who chose courage over comfort, kindness over fear. And for the alien cat girl who learned to trust, fight and inspire." In that quiet moment, the two of them stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. The chains had been broken not just on one life but on many. And together, Mark and Lyra proved that courage, hope and compassion could change the universe, one life at a time. The stars stretched above them, bright and endless, and for the first time, the future looked full of possibility.